On the outskirts of Ashford, a quiet town in southern Indiana, there stood an abandoned building that had long been the subject of whispers and rumors. Ashford High School. Once the pride of the town, it had been left to decay after the tragic fire that had closed its doors in 1993. But it wasn't just the fire that had turned the school into an object of morbid curiosity. In the years that followed, people started to notice strange occurrences around the school. Flickering lights, unexplained noises, and eerie figures seen through cracked windows. Despite its unsettling reputation, no one ever dared to investigate. Until one cold October night in 2019. Welcome to Echoes of Fear, your haven for the most terrifying mysteries and the most disturbing true crime stories. In today's video, I bring you real-life crime tales that challenge human comprehension and continue to haunt our minds, even after time has passed. Get ready for a dark and unsettling journey where the line between reality and fear becomes ever thinner. If you have the courage, settle in, because today's stories will haunt your mind and, who knows, maybe even your dreams. It was around 10:30 p.m. when the police received the first call. An anonymous tip came in, a voice trembling with fear. Someone's in there. In the school. I saw them. The dispatcher on the other end asked for more details, but the caller was frantic and could barely make out any other words before the line went dead. Still, the police responded quickly, sending 2 officers, Sergeant Dean Harris and Officer Emily Carter, to investigate. Sergeant Harris had been with the Ashford Police Department for nearly 20 years. He was used to handling bizarre calls, but something about this one made his stomach twist. The thought of stepping foot in Ashford High School after all these years unsettled him. He had grown up in Ashford, and the fire, which had claimed several lives, was a wound that never fully healed. But he wasn't going to let fear stop him from doing his job. Officer Carter, younger and less acquainted with the haunting history of the school, was ready to take on anything. "It's just a building, right?" she said, trying to keep her tone light as they drove through the foggy streets toward the school. The abandoned school was located on the edge of town, near the woods that bordered the town's outskirts. It was dark, the old brick walls of the school barely visible in the low light, giving it a ghostly, oppressive presence. The area was littered with overgrown weeds, and the windows of the school were shattered, some boarded up while others were left open, like hollow eyes staring into the night. When Harris and Carter arrived, the atmosphere was thick with tension. There was no sign of anyone outside, but the broken windows and the eerie silence suggested something was wrong. Sergeant Harris tried the door, but it was locked. "Should we break it open?" Officer Carter asked, already reaching for her flashlight. Harris hesitated. "No need to. We'll check the perimeter first." They circled the building, shining, their flashlights on the walls. The exterior was weathered, the graffiti and faded signs only adding to the eerie sense of abandonment. As they moved around the back, something caught Carter's eye. A figure darting past one of the rear windows. She froze. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Harris squinted toward the window, but there was nothing there anymore. Only darkness. "I didn't see anything," Harris said, his voice cautious. "But we should go inside, check the place out." "I don't like this." They broke the back door open with a crowbar, stepping cautiously inside. The air was damp, and the smell of mildew hit them instantly. Their flashlights scanned the old hallways, revealing peeling paint, broken lockers, and remnants of the school's past. Old desks, abandoned books, and dusty gym equipment. As they moved deeper into the building, they found themselves in what appeared to be the old science lab. It was the most intact room in the school, though it still had the unmistakable marks of age and neglect. On one of the tables, there was a set of old chemistry equipment. But there was something else. A journal, slightly open, as if someone had left it behind in a hurry. Harris walked over and picked it up. The cover was cracked and worn, and the pages inside were yellowed with age. The writing was faint but legible. As he read through it, his face grew pale. The journal seemed to belong to a student. one who had attended Ashford High years before the fire. The last entry in the journal, dated April 17, 1993, was chilling. They told us it was just a drill. But I think they're hiding something. I hear things in the walls. I saw her again. The woman with the dark eyes. Before Harris could make sense of the entry, they both heard a sound. A faint creak, like footsteps. Someone, or something, was inside with them. "Did you hear that?" Carter asked, her voice rising in panic. Harris nodded slowly. He motioned for her to follow him toward the sound. They crept down the darkened hall, each step more tense than the last. At the far end of the hallway, they saw a faint light, flickering. And then, they found it, the source of the light. It was the old auditorium, its stage lights still on, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. But the most disturbing part wasn't the lights. It was the figure standing in the middle of the stage. A woman, her face obscured by a veil, stood motionless, staring at them. For a moment, neither of them could speak. Harris's mind raced. Who was she? Why was she here? The woman's presence was unnerving, like something out of a nightmare. Suddenly, the figure turned and walked toward the back of the stage, disappearing into the darkness. Without thinking, Harris and Carter ran forward, their flashlights bouncing wildly. But when they reached the back, the room was empty. There was no sign of anyone. The police returned the next day, bringing in a full team. But when they searched the school, no evidence of the woman or anyone else was found. No traces of footprints, no new clues. Only the old journal remained, lying forgotten on the floor. The mystery of Ashford High School deepened. Was the woman a ghost? Was she connected to the fire? And who had been inside the building that night? As the investigation continued, a chilling discovery was made. The journal had belonged to a girl named Emily Thompson, a student who had been one of the victims in the fire. What had she known? What had she seen before it was too late? As the investigation continued to unfold, Harris and Carter would uncover more secrets than they ever expected. Secrets that would not only shatter everything they thought they knew about the school, but also bring them face to face with something far darker than they ever imagined. The discovery of the journal at Ashford High School was just the beginning. The police returned to the scene the following morning, determined to find more evidence. Sergeant Harris and Officer Carter, now joined by Detective Laura Finch, began a systematic search of the building. Finch had been with the Ashford Police Department for over a decade, specializing in cold cases, and her expertise would prove crucial. The team's first task was to gather and document every piece of evidence in the school. They focused their attention on the auditorium, the room where the figure had been seen the previous night. The stage lights were still on, flickering intermittently, creating an eerie atmosphere. However, the most unsettling discovery was a series of marks along the stage floor, as if something, or someone, had been dragged across the floor recently. Detective Finch crouched down to inspect the marks more closely, pulling on her gloves. "These don't look like just scuff marks," she observed, her voice steady but with a hint of unease. "This looks like something, or someone, was moved. Not in a hurry, but carefully." Harris nodded, his mind racing. Could be a body, or something that was meant to look like it wasn't moved at all. "I don't know yet." Finch directed Officer Dew, Carter, to take photographs of the marks while she took notes. "We'll have to check the rest of the building, but this is definitely a sign that something significant happened here." Meanwhile, Harris and Finch made their way to the school's principal's office. They had learned that the principal, Niyi, the time of the fire, a man named Harold Myers, had been one of the casualties. The fire that had destroyed Ashford High School in 1993 was ruled an accident. But the school had been closed for months before the blaze, and it had never been fully rebuilt. The fire had claimed 3 lives: Harold Myers, a teacher named Carla Douglas, and a student, Emily Thompson. As the officers sifted through the remaining documents in the office, one piece of evidence stood out: A letter, sealed in an envelope and dated April 18th, 1993, the day after Emily's journal entry. The letter was addressed to the school board and was signed by Principal Myers. It mentioned concerns about unusual activities on the campus, specifically about strange noises and odd behavior by some of the students. There was also a cryptic reference to a secret beneath the building, but the rest of the letter was almost completely illegible due to fire damage. Whatever was going on in here, Myers was clearly concerned about something. Finch said, holding the letter up for Harris to examine. And it wasn't just the fire. He was worried about the school itself, about what was happening to the students. Whatever it was big enough for him to write a letter like this. Harris glanced at the charred remains of the letter. Something doesn't add up, he muttered. This fire didn't just happen. There's more to it than the official report suggests. Finch took a deep breath. To track down every student, every teacher who was here before the fire. The ones who made it out, the ones who didn't. There's something hidden in this place, and it's been hidden for too long. Over the next several days, the investigation began to take shape. The police department tracked down survivors of the fire, speaking with them about their experiences. Most had moved on with their lives, but they spoke with varying levels of unease when asked about the events leading up to the fire. A few witnesses reported hearing strange noises in the weeks before the fire. Voices, whispers, and even the sound of footsteps where no one should have been. One survivor, Thomas Harris, a former student, recalled seeing something odd in the days leading up to the fire. I don't know if I was just imagining it, but there was something off about the school, like it was alive. Almost. The walls would creak, and sometimes, at night, the lights would flicker. But the weirdest thing, I kept seeing a woman watching me through the windows. She had dark eyes, like she was warning me, or something. I think she knew what was about to happen. The mention of a woman watching from the windows sent a chill down Detective Finch's spine. It matched the description of the figure they had seen in the auditorium. But was it a ghost? Or was it someone with a more tangible connection to the fire? The police also conducted interviews with the family members of the victims. Emily Thompson's parents, Robert and Helen, were still living in Ashford, though they had largely kept to themselves since the fire. They were reluctant to speak with the police, their grief still raw after all these years. However, after several attempts, Detective Finch was able to arrange a meeting with them. Sitting in their modest home on the outskirts of town, Robert Thompson spoke with a quiet intensity. Emily wasn't just a student. She was involved in something. She had been acting strangely before the fire. She would talk about hearing voices in the walls, and she said she saw things that no one else could. I didn't believe her at first, but then, when she started having these dreams, I should have taken it more seriously. She was terrified of something. Finch listened intently, taking notes. Do you know what she was afraid of? Was she seeing someone? Was she involved with anyone at the school who might have known something? Robert's face darkened. She never told me directly, but I know she was talking to someone. I just don't know who. But the night of the fire, she wasn't with us. She ran away. I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. What do you mean she wasn't with you? Finch asked, leaning forward. Where did she go that night? She was at the school, Robert replied, his voice cracking. I know she was. She left right before the fire started. She was meeting someone who told her it was the only way to stop it. But I don't know who. I never got the chance to ask her. Detective Finch's mind raced as she pieced together the fragments of information. There was more to Emily's disappearance than anyone had realized. She hadn't just died in the fire. She had been involved in something much darker. As the investigation deepened, the team uncovered more clues. Hidden rooms beneath the school, cryptic messages left by students in the months before the fire, and strange occurrences that no one had ever fully explained. It became clear that the school's dark history ran deeper than anyone had imagined. And, in the midst of it all, The figure that had been seen in the auditorium, the woman with the dark eyes, was beginning to feel less like a ghost and more like someone with a purpose. But who was she? And what did she know about the fire? The answers were hidden in the walls of Ashford High School, waiting to be uncovered. The investigation had reached a breaking point. Every lead, every clue pointed towards something far more sinister than anyone had anticipated. The police had uncovered hidden rooms beneath Ashford High School, secret passageways that had been sealed for decades. It was in these rooms, buried under layers of dust and neglect, that they found the final piece of the puzzle. An old, rusted door that led to a forgotten basement. When they opened it, the air was thick with the scent of decay, and the flickering light from their flashlights illuminated the unimaginable. Dozens of old photographs, newspaper clippings, and documents, each one chronicling the students, the staff, and the incidents that had occurred within those walls. But one particular photograph stood out. It was a picture of the school's faculty, dated from 1989, 2 years before the fire. And there, standing at the far end of the group, was a woman. Dark eyes, pale skin, with an unsettling expression on her face. "Her," said Harris, his voice low and filled with dread. "That's her. The woman that night. Who is she?" Officer Carter asked, her voice barely a whisper. Finch flipped through the documents, her hands trembling. Her name was Dr. Margaret Sinclair. She was a teacher here, a science teacher, but there's no record of her after 1992. She disappeared just months before the fire. But the deeper they delved into the files, the more chilling the truth became. Dr. Sinclair had been more than a teacher. She had been conducting unauthorized experiments in the school's old basement. In secret, she had been researching paranormal phenomena, and according to the records, she had developed a theory about the energy in Ashford High. A theory that, according to her notes, needed to be harnessed, or it would destroy everything. The more they read, the more it became clear. The fire wasn't an accident. It was a consequence of Sinclair's experiments. She had been attempting to manipulate the school's energy, tapping into something darker, something that fed off fear and death. And in the process, she had caused the tragic blaze that had taken so many lives. But what was even more terrifying was what they uncovered next. In the months before the fire, Dr. Sinclair had become obsessed with a student, Emily Thompson, the same student who had written the cryptic journal entry about the woman with the dark eyes. Sinclair had recruited Emily for her experiments, telling her that she could unlock the secrets of the hidden power within the school. Emily had become her unwilling apprentice, but the more she learned, the more she feared what Sinclair was trying to do. Emily had tried to warn her parents. She had tried to tell them what was happening, how Sinclair's experiments had begun to distort the reality inside the school. But no one believed her. And when Emily had attempted to escape, Sinclair had stopped her, locking her in the basement, where she had witnessed something horrifying. The manifestation of the school's dark energy, something that had taken shape in the form of a shadowy figure, Margaret Sinclair herself. The fire had been the culmination of Sinclair's experiments, a desperate attempt to control the darkness she had unleashed. And when the flames consumed Ashford High, Sinclair's body had been found in the wreckage, along with Emily's, who had died trying to escape. But the true horror came with the discovery that Dr. Sinclair hadn't died in the fire. In fact, she hadn't truly been human at all. The energy she had tampered with had given her immortality, or something close to it. Her spirit had been bound to the school, lingering in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to return. And it had been her, the woman with the dark eyes, who had been seen in the school since that night. Sinclair's spirit had been manipulating the investigation, playing with the police, leading them to the truth, but never fully allowing them to reach it. She had wanted them to know, wanted them to understand what had happened, but she had also wanted them to feel the same terror, the same desperation that Emily had felt before her death. With this new knowledge, Harris and Finch realized the true nature of the mystery they were caught in. They had thought they were solving a cold case, but they had stumbled into something far darker, something that defied explanation. Dr. Sinclair wasn't just a ghost. She was a force, a remnant of the darkness she had unleashed, and she would never let Ashford High School be free from her grip. But just as they thought they had uncovered the truth, something terrible happened. The lights in the school flickered, the air grew cold, and a voice echoed through the halls. A voice, not from the past, but from the present. "You think you found me? You think you know the truth?" Sergeant Harris felt a chill run down his spine as the voice grew louder, more insistent. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." The walls of the school seemed to close in on them as shadows danced along the halls. The door they had entered through slammed shut, trapping them inside. And then, in a sudden rush of wind, everything went dark. The team was found days later, wandering the streets near the school, disoriented and terrified, with no memory of the events that had transpired inside. They could not explain what had happened or what they had seen. The police records were erased, the files lost, and Ashford High School was sealed off once more. And so, the story of Ashford High School became just another local legend, a tale that would be whispered for generations. But those who had been involved in the investigation knew the truth. The darkness had never truly left the school. It was still there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next victim. The last chilling question remained. Was Dr. Margaret Sinclair really gone? Or had she simply found new ways to watch, to haunt, and to control anyone who dared to uncover the secrets of one that could never be fully understood? And Ashford itself would never be the same again. Well, folks, those were today's disturbing stories. I hope they've stirred your emotions and made you reflect on the dark mysteries that surround us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next chilling tales. And of course, if you have the courage, we'll see you in the next video, here on Echoes of Fear. Stay alert, and sweet dreams. If you can sleep,